Brown says, get that India. Big boy.
Call an ambulance! Maybe call a priest! Oh, what a shot! What a shot! Campbell killer!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020, and today we bring you the final leg in a free stretch of special episodes that were recorded on premises at Eels HQ in Kellyville. And after talking to Steve Georgalis and Adam Fairley, we round out this free leg special episode series with our annual chat with Mark O'Neill. And whether it's been in the wake of a huge season that culminated in a grand final loss or a difficult year from outside the eight looking in, Mark O'Neill has never shied away from his end-of-season chats with myself and 60s. And it's true again now in a period of unprecedented change for the Parramatta Eels. The club has moved on from players like Quinton Gufferson and Reagan Campbell-Gillard and has installed a new coach in Jason Ryles, who he himself in turn has completely overhauled the Parramatta coaching staff. All of these changes, of course, are against the backdrop of the rapid development of the Centre of Excellence out at Kellyville, which will be the new home of the Parramatta Eels, as well as the recently announced development at Parramatta Leagues Club in Eels Live, which looks not just to transform game days and the experience of game day for fans, but to transform the entire Parramatta Leagues Club district and precinct into something special for fans of the blue and gold. As with previous end-of-season reviews of Mark O'Neill, we cover a broad spectrum of topics, touching heavily on the NRL and NRLW, how each squad tracked in season 2024, how they're looking heading into season 2025, and of course, with the transition in the NRL, there's a point of emphasis to talk about the impact of Jason Ryles in his early months as coach of the Parramatta Eels, as well as his support staff that includes the likes of Nathan Brown, Scotty Wisemantle, Sam Mower, and the athletic conditioning department headed up by Blair Mills. And before we get into the chat with Mark, just a couple of important plugs, as always with the podcast. Massive thank you to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Maryland, and Parramatta. Shout them out every week for their support for TCT and the Tip Sheet. So much love their way. And as always, a quick plug for a like and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to the Tip Sheet on, whether it's YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, or beyond. Always helps with the growth, with the platform metrics, and sort of getting our exposure out to other fans of both the blue and gold and rugby league in general. So a massive thanks to all of you that do those things for us. And now, let's get to the chat with Mark O'Neill.
2024 will be a year to remember. There wasn't much to smile about during the NRL season, but there were certainly encouraging signs for the NRLW. Since then, it's been an unprecedented off-season and pre-season with Eels news coming thick and fast. Fortunately, it's that time of year where we sit down with Eels General Manager of Football, Mark O'Neill. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
No, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me, guys. I always look forward to our Christmas chats and every other chat we have throughout the year.
Mark, now just before we get into the questions, we would like to express to you our condolences on the passing of Paul Griffin. That it's a personal issue for you, and it's been tough in this latter part of the year, and I know there's probably something you'd like to say in that regard.
Yeah, Paul is my brother-in-law. There's 4 siblings in the family. There's Paul, there's Gary, there's Julie and Belinda being the youngest, and I've married Belinda, and I've known the family for over 30 years. So on behalf of the family, I would like to say a thank you from the Parramatta Eels for their love and support, and that's from the Parramatta Leagues Club, from the football club, from our junior league club and associated members, and all the broader Eels and rugby league football community for the love and support that they've shown the family. Really appreciate that, so thank you.
Mate, it's, as I said, we appreciate the fact that it's been a very tough time for you, and we're very grateful that you've sat down with us today. But again, condolences for what's happened with Paul. Now, Mark, we're going to start this off a little bit differently to our previous podcast, because I'd like you to choose between envelope A and envelope B for the questions. Now, I can't tell you too much, but one of the envelopes has come from a listener, and, let's just say that we'll call him Liam F.
Okay.
Right, so do you go envelope A or envelope B?
Well, that sounds dangerous, envelope from Liam F, so I'll have to go envelope A, I think. Hopefully
Okay.
I've chose the right one.
Okay, we'll have a look. Oh, mate. Look, I think unfortunately for Liam and maybe for some of our listeners, it is my questions and John's questions. So, Liam, we'll have to leave yours. And I know you claim to know Mark quite well. So we'll leave yours for another time.
Thank goodness.
So, Mark, let's dive straight into NRL retention and recruitment. We'd like to begin with recent retentions because we've had a host of them. Matt Dury, Richard Penasini, Saxon Pryke, Brendan Hands, Sean Russell, Kilmer Tuolangi. Getting the contracts done, certainly it takes away some of the conjecture around the future of these players. But for the players themselves, it must also indicate a vote of confidence from Jason Ryles that they feature in his plans.
Yeah, it does. And, we're delighted to have those players come to the club on the back of some signing we had, throughout the year. Zach Lomax, of course, we mentioned. So it's an exciting period here at the moment. There's competition for spots, which is great. They're training hard. It's different. There's a new style. But we're incredibly confident in the squad that we're forming. And most importantly, Jason and his coaches are as well too. So he believes that they're the players that can suit his intended game model and give us the best chance of winning each and every week. And that's what we're trying to do.
And of course, Craig looked at one side of the coin, retention. Recruitment is the other side. That was vastly different from what we saw coming into season 2024, now heading into 2025. It was headlined earlier this year with the acquisition of Zach Lomax, then punctuated by the signings of Isaiah Yongi, Jack Williams, Joash Papali'i, Josh Adokar, Dean Hawkins, Jordan Samrani, Ronald Volkman, and Gideon Katonga. Jeez, that's a mouthful. That's a long sentence. It's probably been the biggest recruitment drive. Well, we've got it down here in the question is more than a decade, but as a fan, geez, Craig, it's got to be well beyond that too. We talk about like 05 and going beyond that as well. Why has the club remained a desirable destination for such quality players in light of everything that's gone on?
I think with the acquisition of the new players or with the re-signing of the existing players is that there's a good roster there. You think of our Hearts, you think of Junior, you think of Will Bailey. Like there's a lot of players that are existing, and I've left a few out there as well too. But I think there'll be belief in the roster. There's certainly belief in the club. We've got a great stadium. We've got some great things happening here at Kellyville Park that'll be released shortly by the way of our Centre of Excellence. I think it's a vote of confidence for our coaching staff that's in there as well. So there's incredible belief in what is building around here. So it's Parramatta's a proud club. It's a big club, and we've got a whole city that we represent. Not many other clubs have that to that scale, and I think with that comes incredible appeal. And we just got to bring it all together now.
Now, Mark, you mentioned some of the existing players, but there's still quite a number on the roster that have been with the club for a number of years. What is it about the qualities of those players that has, I guess, Jason excited about working with them and the club very happy to continue to have them on the roster?
Yeah, well, there could be a few things, Craig, in fairness, whether there's some experience, there's club identity, there's culture, etc. And it's specific to each individual and their positions. But one thing that they all have, and it's been noticeable and commented and acknowledged from Jason and the assistant coaches, is that they have an incredible work ethic and their distress tolerance is very high to that physical load that they've been put through. And I guess in many ways that's a testament to Brad and the regime that he led. And the coaches acknowledge that because they're able to get the volume of work into the guys now and try and do things subtly different their own way. Everyone has a unique style and way they want to do things. But that work ethic has been instilled in them over many, many years, which is, I know the current group are very grateful for.
So let's now break down how you've assembled the roster. The first thing that stands out is the depth that's been achieved through development contracts and train and trial deals. How important was it to get this part of the roster right?
Well, it's crucial, I feel. Like, I guess in any instance, you the way you look at it is understand the coach and how he wants to play the game of football. What's his game model? What's the style of football that he wants to play? And then once he tells you that, then you can get alignment and make sure everyone's clear, whether it's your recruitment team, whether it's athletic performance, whether it's even, some of the players. From there, we understand, okay, what's the composition like? How many front rowers and hookers and centres and back rowers do you need, to be able to give yourself the best chance of winning, right? And then following on from that, we can line up the players from the recruitment context. We know what type of players we know the style that we want to play, and then funneling these back through to the coach and giving him the decision authorities around the players that are important around that. So that's how it sort of works from that part. Then you can have a conversation with your athletic performance to say, look, we know the intended game style that the coach wants to play. Now we've got to train to that. So it's no use, in very simplistic terms, it's no use producing endurance athletes if you need to play a speed and power game. Yeah. So we need to make sure they train accordingly. And once you have that, you're all congruent. There's alignment around how you want to play and what style is needed. Then you can go and execute upon that. I guess from the roster in the trainer trials and the development list, there was a few years, 2 seasons ago, we probably lacked a bit of depth in player, 22 or 25 to 30 and beyond. And some of those guys might not play each and every week and play the 24 games. However, everyone needs to contribute throughout the season, so whether it's at training or in the games. And in fairness, recruitment teams work pretty hard to make sure that bottom end, if you like, is really strong. And of the 6 development players that we do have, 4 of them already played NRL football. So that's a great initiative. And there's some of our coming through for our training trials that will be playing NRL football as well. So it's crucial to make sure that, in football, every moment matters, right? And in every game. And we need the players to do their role whenever they're called upon and have confidence for the coaches to call upon these players as well too. So we've worked hard in that, and we feel like we've given some players a really good opportunity here at this club, and should they take it, they could be here for many years to come.
And that's the perfect springboard for our next question, because you mentioned the dev players in the top 30. Can you break down where the roster currently sits in terms of both of those allocations, the top 30 and the development list?
With the NRL rules, you need to have 24 players signed by November 1 to start the off-season as per the CBA, 28 players by round 1, and then 30 players by June 30. That's the critical dates that we work towards. At the moment, we're looking at signing 1 more player by round 1, and that's probably an outside back would be what we'd be probably looking at, but things can change depending on the need.
Opportunity and all those
agile,
factors.
make sure we can accommodate it if an opportunity did arise.
Well, having space allows you to be agile, doesn't it?
It does. Invariably with football, or inevitably with football, there's opportunities pop up sometimes, and you've got to be able to make the most of it and pounce if and when required. It's going to make you better.
Well, that sort of leads into the next question, because I, wanted to ask if there are still recruitment targets. Now, you said, possibly an outside back before round 1. With available spaces, has there been a decision made about ideally what positions you'd like to strengthen before June 30, or is it a matter of looking at, say, certain players, if certain players came up, regardless of their position, that they might be good to acquire?
Absolutely. I think if you have the space, you're always open to players. There's a lot of movement, in the game these days, isn't it? And if you don't have the space, you can't, pursue that opportunity or make it happen. We've spoken, I mentioned just briefly about outside back in purely numbers. That's all. We've got, quality depth in our squad at the moment, and I'm pretty comfortable with the level of of quality that we've got. Jason's very happy with that, but also just having the need to remain agile to see if that opportunity can come up. Will that help us win, and when will it help us win? Is it a decision for today, or is it a decision for tomorrow? And if you don't have any spots left, it'll have to be a decision for tomorrow. So you could be right in having a red hot opportunity in front of you. If you don't have that space, you can't materialise. And we've done that in the past with some of the players that we've brought to the club over the years. It's because we did have a bit of space up our sleeve to execute.
Well, I think one of the most recent ones would have been Joe Offengowie as well. So he was a mid-season pickup.
Yeah.
And, he's obviously an important part of the plans for this year.
Yeah.
And was probably one of the most consistent players in 2024.
Yeah, that's right. And, similar things happened with Regan Campbell-Gillard, who went on to do some, great things here at the club as well too in his time. So, yeah, having the space to do that in terms of numbers and dollars can provide good opportunities if they materialise. So, yeah.
You don't like to dwell on the past, but you did mention that a couple of years ago you probably would have retweaked that bottom end of the top 30. So in that light, could roster assembly being done a bit better in those last couple of years? And further to that point, without giving away your trade secrets, obviously, has there been an adjustment to the club's thinking, formula or processes coming into this year, heading into 2025?
Yeah, look, I think when you sit back and reflect, it's important to acknowledge what has been done well and obviously some of the challenges and what can improve. And I think you can always, and we always strive to be better. The things that could be done differently, we had some last 2 seasons, our injury numbers haven't been great at various times, and not a lot of them have been soft tissues and things like that. They've been contact collisions or reconstructions that have occurred. So I think maybe just getting the numbers right in terms of how many you have in training to be able to prepare as best you can at game intensity and the like, and having the right numbers in the right positions. We had in the outside backs last year, we had a few injuries and we come up short a few times with in terms of the numbers there. So having the depth all the way through from NRL development, train and trial is really pleasing. And the other point I probably should have mentioned just before around filling roster spots as well too is that there's always an opportunity for one of those development squad players to get promoted into a top 30 contract, and you can do that right up until June 30. So that's definitely like an option for some of ours that we've got. As I mentioned, there's a bit of a depth there, so it was probably should have made that point on the previous question, but it is something that is worthwhile and beneficial. Should players be worthy.
Mark, has there been a change to the train and trial eligibility of when they can play NRL in 2025?
Not from previously. So like the development contracted guys can be picked from round 1 onwards, and the train and trial guys can play from round 11 onwards.
Yep.
Sorry, that's without approval. If any of the train and trial players were to play in rounds 1 to 10, you would need to seek an exemption with valid grounds from the NRL in order for that player to be allowed to play. Otherwise, it would be from round 11 onwards, all train and trialists can play, and from round 1 onwards, all development players can play.
The need for speed is evidently at the core of a lot of Parramatta's recruitment for next year. Are you now happy with the athletic balance of speed and power in the squad heading into 2025?
Yeah, there's no doubt there's some faster guys in our squad. And it's interesting when we talk about speed, people would, I guess, generally think about like outside backs, and I reckon ordinarily I probably would have as well at one point. And that's certainly, a valid conclusion, because if I use like Josh Adokar, for example, he, could run, the distance and score a try. But equally, if someone makes a break, he can turn and run them down and save a try as well. Now, that's one part. There's another part around being speed and agile around the ruck as well too, some of our forwards. Think of some defensive movements or some of the foot speed into the collisions. So that's been a bit of a focus as well too, and you need to train it. You need to train how you want to play, and that's been a bit of a subtle difference or a deliberate focus on that type of football.
And from a footy perspective, this has been the biggest transitional period for the club in well over a decade. Obviously, new coach, Quinn Guffison's gone. You throw in the Kellyville development, which is looking awesome as we sit here just across from it now. And it becomes one of the biggest changes or periods of change in the club's modern history. So from the players to the staff and obviously the administration too, how are the vibes with just so much happening on all levels right now?
It is amazing. You see the plans released recently for the precinct at PLC, which is fantastic. We see what's happening out here at Kellyville Park. There has been a new coach and coaching staff, so there's been a bit of change. There's been change in the players. That brings opportunity. It brings excitement. It brings energy. And you come out here at training and you see the fox. He's loud. And
you hear the fox before you see the fox.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone said that previously, and it's exactly the case. You see the connectivity that change has brought just within the whole group, whether it's administration, whether it's football department, whether it's players, whether it's pathways. There's just a really good feeling amongst the group. There's a good connection part of it, and it's going really well. And I completely acknowledge that we'll be judged on performances come March to first weekend in October. But at the moment, the connectivity and trying to drive the culture, it's really good. And I've got to say, to your point, there's a lot of good things happening at the moment, and it's great to be part of it.
It's almost hard to keep a lid on the excitement in some ways that maybe we shouldn't. Try to keep a lid on in any way. Now let's just focus on Jason Ryles. What's impressing you the most about him at the start of his tenure?
Well, I think there's quite a few things, in fairness. I like the way that he communicates with all people from all aspects of a club. Like a footy club's not just your 17 that run out each week, It's the broader squad, it's the extended squad, it's the staff, football and administrative. It's our community, it's our sponsors, it's our past players, it's our members and fans, it's our junior league. The fact that we're trying to bring everyone on a journey, and Jason's doing a really good job of that. We've had a couple of community sessions already where there've been a fan day and members day, and just the way that the buy-in and willingness to engage and be generous with our time, that's going to inspire the next superstar to come through and want to play for Parramatta, and that's been really impressive. There's been a part that a big part really where Jason has shared what he wants to do, and what he's shared with us, he's so far delivered on everything, and it's really exciting. And like I said, we're not getting carried away from ourselves. We know that this is what I guess a lot of clubs are doing similar things this time of year, and we're acutely aware of that.
We're all in the same points on the ladder.
Yeah, well, exactly. So we're acutely aware of that, and we know that the competition starts in March, and that's when we would need to be firing, and then periodise up towards the back end of the season as well too. So it's we're not getting ahead of ourselves, but that's what is exciting and talks to those good vibes that you mentioned even before. So
Jason's first long-form piece of media as a coach at the Parramatta Eels after his announcement was a big sit-down with Adam Hawes. And we did a breakdown of that going back, obviously, months now. And something that really stood out to 60s and myself when we did that breakdown was how much he stressed the influence or importance of culture and that connection to the fans. How important was it for Jason to embrace that Parramatta identity and the connection to supporters?
Well, I think it's crucial. And the way he's done it has been incredible, to be fair. We've had Karen put some books together around our history and our past, whether that be key landmarks, milestones, like Jack's bus, for example, the monument in Parramatta Square, like past players. So we learn a bit about the club, the fruit picking, where it all started. Jason's bought into that. And what happens when your leader buys into something, he's telling everybody that this is important and this means a lot to me. And when it means a lot to the leader, it'll mean a lot to everyone else. And that's what Jason's brought in. He understands the importance of that. He's come from, clubs, and he's got experiences in other successful clubs and, another successful sport, as in rugby union. He's worked for some wonderful coaches. So he understands how important that community feeling and the sense of belonging is in any high-performing team, notwithstanding this is rugby league. So I think if you want to deliver something special, you need to nail that, and that's certainly Jason's philosophy as well too. So it's crucial that he bought into that, and it's pretty much organically in him, to be fair.
And it's been a busy preseason because obviously we've seen the pictures of Peter Sterling coming to training, and that's been part of a number of other I suppose entities or people that have been involved. It's been, as a fan, been great to see. Yeah, you talk about the buy-in. Obviously, as a coach, he's bought in, but just really embracing it all.
Absolutely, and it's awesome to see Sterlo around the club at any time, such as his status not only within the game, but here at Parramatta, he speaks a lot of sense, and also we just had a golf day recently when Nathan Kalis was the MC that interviewed him, another club legend, that can talk a lot to the history, culture, and heritage that I know Ryles leans in on him for those parts there. So it is great to see that network, and once the new year comes around and we sort of head towards our first trial on that, it'll be important that Jason keeps his focus on the football, the NRL, and I'm sure he will, and he knows that, and he's shared his plans, and he's done a lot now, and he's got a lot to be proud of, and then we'll narrow the focus down a little bit once the season comes and get into football mode.
Well, talking about the broader staffing, there's been a major overhaul to the football staff, although you just mentioned Nathan Kalis, so we have to acknowledge that there are key staff who are still with the club. It seems to be a happy and cohesive unit on that coaching staff, and one which provides tremendous support for the head coach. How would you sum up what the new assistant coaches bring to the table?
It's an interesting comment you made about the cohesion, because you don't normally build cohesion until you have time together, I guess. But I agree with your observation. They are functioning as a cohesive unit. And I think the reason they're functioning as a cohesive unit because it is a big collaborative environment where people are sharing information, they're all learning, they're challenging one another. And how would I describe the coaches that come up? I think they're all unique in their own way. Scotty Wisemantle is, I guess, renowned throughout the world for his skill acquisitions in rugby. Yep. And as a skill acquisition coach, he's fantastic, but he understands the game. Like, Scotty is a local boy. He played for Hills.
Yeah, we had inside running on the Scotty Wisemantle signing with John Muggleton. He walked us through what Scotty would bring to the club.
There you go.
Going back
so
a little bit.
Would know better than most. As another one of our old boys legends that we caught up with the other day. So Wisey knows the game, played the game, had success here in lower grades at the Eels, Parramatta person, but drumming the fundamentals into the players continually, consistently, and never accepting anything less than the gold standard. You make a break, you finish it. Don't pull up. Support, where are you? The actual detailing the skills is enormous, which I won't go in and sort of bore everyone right now about it, but that's what from Wisey can bring. Sammy Moa, although the name's Sam Moa, he's Tongan and of heritage, and he communicates really well with all players, but particularly forwards. He's had a successful career himself. He knows what it takes. He's got a lot of value to add there, not only from the defensive craft that I would say that he would be expert in, but also the cultural benefits as well too, that he can relate with some of our players and unlock not only our NRL squad, but our broader community, because we're over-indexed and proudly with the Pacifica population with our club at all levels. So that's important, I feel, to recognise that. Nathan Brown is a different style of coach as well. We're lucky enough to have had Brownie worked through our pathways in the recent past, and he's added enormous value in terms of educating the player. And his role through the pathways was educating the players on giving them the tools to use in certain situations, but always understanding it's the boss in terms of the head coach that will determine which tools you need to use from a team context. So he gives the individual some skills. He gives the craft out of dummy half as a 9 was enormous, and you watch him, use his skill, the way he communicates and delivers feedback. He takes the player on the journey. So I think there's a lot of complementers around that. As a head coach, there's times where you will need to be direct and more forthright, but Ryles creating that learning environment for everyone, and just those coaches alone bring a lot of diverse skills. And of course, I've already briefly mentioned about Kalo. Kalo's, honestly, there's, how tough Kalo was as a player, that's exactly how he coaches as well too. But he understands the connection piece of it. He's worked under some good coaches in the past as well, and he's added great value here, combining everything with a little bit of Eels DNA in it as well too. So, I see them all as being really good complementers for one another.
And Callow's got to be excited about the squad he's got next year too. He's probably one of the biggest sub-beneficiaries of your big recruitment drive.
Yeah, he is, and he's part of that too. And the program that has been run in New South Wales Cup is really good too. And he's very professional, Kalo. His attention to detail is spot on, and the resourcing that we've put in there to make sure that we can give as many players an opportunity as possible at that age level through our feeder clubs, etc., is enormous, and he brings it together really, really well.
Yeah, really excited about the Cup next year as well as the NRL, obviously. But another one that had me really excited, and probably the most intriguing addition to that training staff, was Blair Mills. Super Rugby All Blacks background, which is always really interesting for me, looking at the success that New Zealand's had for a long time there. What is he and his high-performance team adding to the Eels as a point of difference in the pre-season, and how have the players responded there?
Yes, the players have responded very well. There's some changes. It's different. Blair's wherever Blair has worked, his success has followed him. He's a terrific character. His work ethic is unbelievable. He's got a data, sports science, strength sort of background. He's utilising that to the best he can, as in looking at real-time data, real-time numbers, so adjusting the players, pulling him in and out of training, which you may have observed, to make sure their loads are not putting him into a dangerous zone where they could, break down. He understands that to play a certain way, you need to prepare to play that certain way and train, and you need to repeat it. You need to go above game intensities at times, but you can't do that, in the space of 1 or 2 weeks. You need to periodise it and build to it. So he's been very scientific in his approach, but he's also got the balance with his team as well. He knew what team he wanted and what skill set they needed to be able to deliver the intended game model from the coach. So there's great alignment there, and he's got some great skills and expertise. And one of the things that he brought in under his team as well, which I probably should mention, is Alice, who's our full-time dietitian. So with the heat, the way it is at the moment, they're quite hot days, aren't they? And you need to be mindful of the heat policy.
Yeah.
Make sure our players are safe and looked after if you want to be able to do the level of training and the intensity, the volume that you would like to. She's been a wonderful addition, in a full-time capacity to not only manage the body compositions of the players, and which is never fun, but giving them all nutrition guidance, but refueling and just making sure that our athletes are ready to go to optimise a training session each and every time. So, I feel like there's more numbers in that space, and he runs a very, very professional program.
It's interesting when you mention that real-time data, because I think you see Blair walking around with a device monitoring the players out there during the training sessions, and yes, I have observed the players being taken out of the sessions at different points. So literally seeing that in action. So it's interesting to get that feedback from you. Turning now to the NRLW. Though they didn't qualify for finals football, they won more games than any previous season. The club must be very pleased with the team's first year under new coach Steve Georgalis.
Absolutely. We're very happy to have Georgie on board. He's a terrific coach. He's an educator. He connects with people. He can be hard and firm at times, and I think the girls, really enjoy that. They like the professionalism and the intensity as the men do. And, we look at both programs the same, to be fair, and Georgie has brought the girls together. They've been, in fairness to the existing girls that have been here previously, they were a very connected group. So that's a full credit, or a lot of credit must go to Kate Parkinson as well in that role. She's the one that creates the environment, she's a temperature gauge, the facilities. There's nothing Parko can't do, or there's no problem too big for her to solve. And that's, the players are the beneficiary of all of her hard work, and we're so grateful to have her part of the team, and she works well with Georgie as well. Georgie's coaching he's been very well planned. It's detailed. They've upped the ante a little bit in the coaching. Having him in the business sort of full time is helpful around that too. He plays a role in the elite pathways as well. But there's some exciting times ahead for the NRLW girls, and that program is, and it was industry recognised from the RLPA.
Yeah, we saw that coming
number
out.
one.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and that's from the players themselves rating their own club. So we're proud of that. It tells us our players are happy with what we're doing. They'll be a lot happier, if we're able to, lift the trophy. And to your point you made earlier around having a successful season, it was, but it wasn't to the level of success that we're striving for. It was great to be in contention of that last game, whether we could make the finals or not, but we want to be in contention and winning the very last game of the season.
And obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, we shouldn't need to plug that fantastic chat that we had with Steve about both the junior pathways and NRLW. But in that chat, we spoke about the 2024 season, about recruitment retention, including the pair of international acquisitions, Paige Travis, Martha Mattielli, who are going to be big boons to the Eels moving into next year. But he did speak about the depth situation there and how he was pleased about it. How do you assess them and their roster moving into next year?
I'd agree with Georgie's sentiment. We've challenged ourselves to make sure that we deliver a roster that we can compete for premierships. We've got a few acquisitions, as you mentioned there. I think with Mahalia and Abby being selected in the Australian team, Kennedy possibly would have been selected as well.
Would have been right in the mix. Yep.
Rachel playing Origin. Who knows where Rory Owen's going to end up with her career? Such an exciting talent she is. Cassie as well, and Paige and Martha coming through. So I think, that it looks bright there, and, pulling them all together and making sure they gel, and able to compete for premiership. I'm excited by what lies ahead of us in 25, and the depth seems to be good. We've got our Harvey Norman women's team as well, which we started up for the first time this year, and that's to give opportunity for, our Eels girls that have a pathway now from Junior League all the way to the NRLW. It's so important. But with our recruitment, whether it is the men's game or the women's game, we're always looking for talent, not only within the Parramatta districts but externally, because, we don't want to stop. We want to deliver something special in terms of, premiership success.
And we asked Steve about this, but when expansion came to the NRLW last time, which was the Tigers, the Sharks and the Raiders, we got picked apart. They picked out the core of our team, and obviously we retained some great players in Kennedy and whatnot, but it just speaks volumes to where the club is at now. But it's the complete opposite this time, isn't it? You've got the Warriors coming back, you've got the Bulldogs coming in, and yet the Eels have just made retention after retention from the core group and from young players coming up.
Yeah, that's true, and we're happy with that. And there's a lot of hard work that's gone into that program between Georgie, Kate Parkinson, and Kate Mullally. So that's and they deserve a lot of credit for that. The culture and environment they're doing, and the standards that Georgie accepts and upholds is fantastic. And it shows a level of confidence from the players to want to sign at the club. Now that's good too for retention or recruitment purposes as well, because word will get around, and when you're successful, like if you look at like Roosters have been, over
Correct.
the years, whatnot, they want to play for that club, and we want to be that club that the women want to play for. And if you make it enjoyable, you make it successful, you make it that learning and developing environment, that'll be a great attraction for the women to come and play for our club.
Just another area that we spoke to Steve about was pathways. Now, our male program produced 4 Australian schoolboys, and the club is supplementing local talent with selective recruitment. And now we've got 4 of the coaches in the pathways system employed full-time. Can you talk to us about this level of investment that the club's now going to its pathway system?
Sure. I guess the pathways are crucial to every club, yeah? More so when you are considered a development club more than a recruitment club. So you want to be developing the players and you want to be retaining the players. I must say that I could fill a roster in the NRL squad and I could have 30 players made up of our pathways players, but we might not be in a position to compete for premierships. So we're always looking for exceptional talent, whether it's from a Queensland market, whether it's from a New Zealand market, whether it's Northern New South Wales or any of the emerging nations, we will continue to look for exceptional talent. We're open for business for talent that is exceptional. We don't want to be buying over the top of our local players that are of quality, that are also exceptional, I might add. And there's been many of those that have come through our pathways and made their way through NRL. So once the talent, that's part A, getting the talent in, and then it's coaching them and developing them. And we believe that the best chance of having an alignment from our NRL program down through to the elite pathways will be if you're in the position to have the full-time coaches. So out here at training, we'll see every coach throughout our junior rep teams here spend some time and actually doing the drills with the NRL squad. So they're learning. It's a bit of a professional development for them. Safe to say that they're going to grow for that. And they can take things down to their players. So the ultimate beneficiaries will be our elite pathways players, both men and women too, I might add. It's not just been the men because it's an NRL program. No, we've had the female staff, our SG ball, our Tasha Gale coach, works full time, so she's been unable to make it to some of those sessions, but it's been filtered back through either Georgie, Kate Mullally, and the like that have been there. So I feel like that we've got a good coverage, and it's going to give every chance for those kids to be better, and that's what we want to do, because the aim of the Pathways program is to get as many kids to NRL and NRLW as possible, and that's what we thought. Getting the talent primarily from our own development clubs, but we are, do recruit, exceptional talent elsewhere, and once they're in, they're all treated as our own, and we make them better people, better players, getting that coaching, that athletic performance, getting to try and train like an NRLW player. I think it'll help their skills and give them every opportunity to get to the top.
Now, you're a busy man at a frenetic time of year, so we'll start to wrap things up in this show by having a quick look ahead to 2025 and the NRL draw, because it's been a grueling few years for Parramatta in terms of strength of schedule metrics and whatnot, and the Eels received their most benevolent draw in quite a number of years. So how much, if at all, does that change the expectations and perspective for you and the club in the upcoming season, given that we know as fans that a lot can change for not just the Eels, but all franchises in the NRL across a given pre-season?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake one can make when looking at the draw when it is released is that you're actually comparing on the previous year's performance.
You're looking in the past, right? Yeah. And there's so many moving parts between recruitment, retention, development.
Absolutely, and it can be dangerous sometimes. Like, who would have thought a few years back when a team would have had to play the Warriors, and you think, oh, terrific,
Yep. And
they ended up top 4.
Took a big jump under Webster.
So,
yep.
so that was a couple of years back. But so I guess the interesting thing is like the round 1 game with Melbourne. Like, Ryles sees that as a good challenge, and then we go into the Tigers in round 2 and the Dogs, so there's 3 good games to start the season off, and I don't think you want to be looking sort of too far ahead, because, as I mentioned, one of the biggest mistakes is you get caught in the previous year. just have a look at the first handful of games, and we'll worry about the first one and the second one, and we won't jump the fifth hurdle until we jump the fourth one.
You don't get a better,
what I mean? So
don't get a better yardstick than Melbourne in round one, don't you?
Yeah, and it's exciting because they're the games you want to test yourself against them, and they'll be. I'm sure Bellyache will be wanting to come out and have another victory, but even more so, it's one of his understudies,
Proteges,
proteges, yeah. So,
well, Mark, we've come to the end of our chat. So, thank you so much for getting Eels fans up to date. Have you got any messages for, and I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of Eels supporters out there, so have you got any messages for them for the upcoming season?
I would just like to say that, firstly, thank you for the loyal support, if I may, that's gone on throughout the year. We recognise it wasn't the year that we'd like to have. However, there has been some change made, and now that's made, we're onwards and upwards. I'd like to say expect a greater level of connectivity coming up. We've reflected upon obviously how important it is within the community and that one club sort of culture. And we want to make the reason our players play is for the community, and we want to make all our members and fans and Eels broader community proud. There will be a lot happening this year in terms of foundation, the COE. We've seen some exciting plans around the Leagues Club. I think there's just a wonderful opportunity that lies ahead of us. I think you will see a very competitive team that will fight to the end. And if we can sit here this time next year and say that we've made our members and fans proud, we will know then we've had a successful season, and that'll make all of us happy and proud as one. And that's what I would like to say to your listeners and to all members and fans out there. We'll be more united than we've ever been.
Mark, I know for listeners and ourselves alike, we always bookmark this end of season debrief, and it's definitely one of the big calendar events for TCT and the tip sheet. So we always are incredibly thankful for the time that you take out of. I mean, it's the Christmas rush now, so when we say we're thankful for the time you take out, we mean it sincerely, because it is just flat out go out there in Kellyville. Thank you for joining the tip sheet and giving fans another look into what's happening at Parramatta, and I think it's fair to say that we're all really excited.
Yeah, and also thank you to Liam Fulton for the message.
Yeah. Wait till I get hold of him. I might catch up with him over Christmas. But thank you very much, gents. I really appreciate it, and I wish you and all your listeners a Merry Christmas, and can't wait to pick it up in the new year.
Thank you, mate. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, guys.